Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. This is, of course, the installment, whatever this is, the fifth, sixth of the season of a game preview for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Of course, the game this week that's going to be previewed is Iowa at Wisconsin, I believe it is. We'll see here in a moment when I get the ESPN matchup profile pulled up. But this is an interesting contest, just right off the bat. These are rivals. The Big Ten West and divisions in the Big Ten have disbanded. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of how these storied rivalries, how much they remain or kind of disintegrate as far as the actual rivalry goes. As I said last year, actually going back to the rivalry situation, I do actually think that it is feasible to believe that some of these rivalries might go down a little bit as far as their importance and intensity and how much they are viewed as a rivalry. The Big Ten West, especially this game in particular, uh, was oftentimes the decisive game in determining who is going to win the Big Ten West. Especially since 2015, I believe if you go back to 2015, that year that CJ Beathard emerged and they defeated Wisconsin on the road, a very gutsy performance. Defense played pretty well and the offense did just enough to get the victory. It's one of the last times Iowa has had a decent offense and somewhat of a fun offense to watch with, a halfway decent quarterback. And I think Wisconsin finished second that year in the Big Ten West. It may not have been called the Big Ten West at that time. It could have been Legends versus Heroes, but whatever it was. And since then, there's been many years where that's the case. Sometimes Northwestern, was able to jump in there and kind of surprise people and finish with a number one spot. But by and large, it's been Iowa and Wisconsin. And this game really does determine, or at the very least, it goes a long way in deciding who was going to be the Big Ten West champion. Now, obviously, that's gone. I do think that the intensity with this rivalry is going to remain. This rivalry has been going on for a long time. The programs have a lot of ties to one another. Obviously, Barry Alvarez had his connection to the University of Iowa. They're very similar programs. In a lot of ways, people view them in the same kind of manner, stout defenses, bring your lunch pail to work type thing. We're going to put in the work. Yeah, we might not have the most talent in the conference, but we're going to out physical you, out tough you, outwork you, and we're going to win. And we're going to have tough defenses. We're going to be able to pound the rock, and that's how we're going to get it done. With the exception of, when, Wisconsin kind of went on their run, they had some decent quarterback play. You think of Russell Wilson and some of the other quarterbacks that they had that weren't too bad. So I think the rivalry will remain. The states are viewed very similarly. They recruit in the same areas, the same territories. The state, they recruit hard in the state of Illinois. Wisconsin comes into the state of Iowa. Iowa goes into the state of Wisconsin. For what it's worth, I do think that Iowa has gotten more recruits out of the state of Wisconsin than Wisconsin has gotten out of the state of Iowa. But still. The most recent recruit that I would say Wisconsin was able to get out of Iowa that was a decent recruit And really, quite frankly, the only recruit that I can remember would be TJ Ballers. But that doesn't mean that they haven't, gave extended offers and things of that sort. But fast forward, so I do think that the rivalry will remain. Fast forward to where we're at now with the divisionless conference. And, these two teams, I think, are going into this matchup, really going into the season, are different. They're in different areas. They're in different spots in their programs. Wisconsin a few years ago got rid of their coach and Paul Christ, and Iowa has remained with Kirk Ferentz for since then. Kirk Ferentz is now the all-time Big Ten all-time wins leader, I think, as a Big Ten head coach. Um, and Iowa is trying to get the last little bit of orange juice out of the orange. They're trying to squeeze the last little bit that they can with, the addition of Tim Lester and trying to revamp the offense. While Wisconsin, they went out there and got one of the hottest coaches, if not the hottest coach on the market in Luke Fickell, who did a phenomenal job at Cincinnati and really, brought that program forward, resurrected that program. Well, maybe resurrected is the wrong word, but brought that program forward. And the program I don't think has been quite the same since Fickell's departure, but at the very least, they have the name recognition is a bit stronger after he had coached there. And now looking at Wisconsin, it's really been up and down, and there hasn't been. Most Wisconsin fans would definitely agree with this. There hasn't been the success that a lot of fans were hoping for. When Luke Fickell was hired, the bottom line is most people around the Big Ten, definitely Wisconsin fans, were really expecting for Wisconsin to take that leap forward and potentially, become a consistent top tier one Big Ten program. I always tell you guys when I look at the Big Ten as far as prestige and season to season, obviously prestige across 5, 10 years, whatever year mark you want to use, is different than a year to year look. But I always view it in turn, especially when I was doing and had time to do my Big Ten rankings. I always did tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four, because I think that's the easiest way to rank the programs. And when looking at Wisconsin, a lot of the fans were expecting Wisconsin to become a perennial tier one type program that was able to compete year in, year out, competing for 9, 10 win seasons, competing against the likes of Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan's. And quite frankly, it just hasn't happened. So, with that said, we come into this matchup again. Wisconsin is struggling a little bit. And here we are, guys. I mean, they come into this game 2-3, 0-2 in the Big Ten. But I will say, I love the fact that they played Alabama. Alabama. I really wish, I can't help myself sometimes. I got to say that. I really wish that Iowa scheduled more games like that. I am so tired of Iowa playing Iowa State year in, year out. I know there's Iowa fans that watch my channel that disagree, especially fans that are from the state of Iowa, live in the state of Iowa. But I'm just not one of them, for what it's worth. I would much rather Iowa lose to an Alabama than Iowa State. If and regardless, I think I'd rather see that game. And I've said time and time again, I would want an every other year type arrangement. I digress. For what it's worth, Wisconsin's 3 losses, and I absolutely believe that this is worth mentioning, are against quality opponents. Alabama is a solid program, obviously. Maryland is 4-1, I believe. Michigan, Alabama's eighth in the country right now, 4-1 overall. Um, so they're not terrible losses, but they were pretty lopsided. Yeah, I would feel if I was a Iowa fan, I would be more concerned if the games were a little bit closer. Obviously, the final score can be deceiving. And two of these games were on the road in some of the toughest environments in the country. But still. So, and with Michigan is 15th in the country, 4-1, with their only loss coming at the hands of Oklahoma. Whereas the Iowa Hawkeyes come into this game with two losses, both games. You could certainly make the case that they should have won this game, or excuse me, should have won both games. Losing to Iowa State with a field goal in the final minute or so on the road. Iowa State did just lose, I believe, to Cincinnati. Um, I don't know if I think that game was on the road for Iowa State as well. Let's take a look here. Let's take a peek, shall we? But the game that they really should have won, that they had within grasp, yes, it was on the road, was absolutely the Indiana game. And had Iowa won that game, it really could have revived their season. Not that the season's done. They absolutely can, go on a tear from here and finish, with a 9-10 win season. But the Indiana game, and I think I heard this with PFF, as far as Iowa, by the way, guys, if you ever see that channel, those guys are the biggest nerds I've ever seen talking college football, but I digress. But still, but they appear to be good guys. I was listening to them, give the game preview for Iowa versus Indiana, and they said that if Iowa wanted to possibly compete for a college football playoff spot, and get to the 9-10 win mark, Indiana was the game that they needed to win, especially at home. When you look at the fact that they have a sneaky, difficult game at Wisconsin, game against Penn State. Minnesota, that's never easy. That's a rivalry game at home against Oregon. USC's better this year. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than this. Now, for what it's worth, I can see a path to victory in all of these games. Penn State is not as good as people thought, losing this past week. But the game against Indiana was absolutely winnable. And every Iowa fan knows that a victory there would have massively transformed, likely massively transformed the ending and outcome of this season. Especially going into a bye week, you have a bye week before you get your slate of games against Wisconsin and Penn State and all the rest. And it just didn't happen. They lost to UCLA and they lost to Oregon in overtime. So, it is what it is. I think really just giving a broad overview here and talking about, obviously as an Iowa fan, the Hawkeyes, both these teams don't have bad losses. I think Wisconsin, due to the lopsidedness of their losses, appears a little bit worse. But all of the losses between these two teams are against ranked teams, against quality opponents, not bad. So, because of that, I think it's kind of difficult to judge this game. Now, going up here, Iowa comes into this game as a 3.5 point favorite, with the over and under set at 36.5. The line hasn't really moved too much. It opened at 3.5 in favor of Iowa, which I think is accurate. At this point in the season, I would kind of lean towards that as well. Although playing on the road against Wisconsin is never easy. ESPN Football Power Index is actually heavily favored in Iowa's direction. Maybe the game against Indiana did them some favors, or maybe they just really don't like Wisconsin. Gives Iowa a 63% chance to win this football game. Some of the leaders coming into this game, Gronowski, which we'll circle back to, 636 passing yards to 640 for O'Neal, 198 on the ground for uh, Jazian Patterson, uh, and 217 for D Jones. Receiving yards 258 for Anthony the second, 179 for Sam Phillips. Sam Phillips is quietly having a decent year. Max Llewellyn has 5 sacks. He's playing great. As I expected, that's one of the many areas I've been vindicated this year. I said that Max Llewellyn was going to be my breakout player, and he has been, and I think he is playing himself into a top 5 round draft pick, especially when you consider how raw his talent really is. In a lot of ways, he's actually really similar to Lucas Van Ness in size, in athleticism, in the rawness. I do think Lucas Van Ness had a little bit more experience. Um, going into his final year, but not by much. I mean, it's about the same. They both were backups the year before. They showed some promising, footage and statistics and results, and then the following year they really had a solid year. Leading tacklers: Jaden Harrell, 32, Allegro, 27, Allegro. But Harrell looks like he's going to be out versus Wisconsin. And legacy recruit for the Iowa Hawkeyes is likely going to man that position. Although, Iowa has a slew of talented former 4-star young linebackers: Preston Reese, Cam Buffington, let's see, Derek Weiskopf, a lot of talent. Carson Cooney, a lot of talented guys. Burt Goucher. So the talent is there, but obviously the experience is not. Really quickly, let's read this from Hawk Central from the depth chart. So Mark Gronowski is listed as the starting quarterback going into this game. I'm not really surprised by that. It's possible by game time that Iowa decides not to go with him, that he doesn't give them the best chance to win. And if I was Iowa and he was 50-50, I'd probably put him on the depth chart too, just to, some gamesmanship there. So here we go. The Hawkeyes are also putting redshirt sophomore Hank Brown as their backup quarterback with an or distinction alongside redshirt freshman Jeremy Hecklinski, listed for the first time as an Iowa backup. That also clouds the Hawkeyes' picture heading into the battle for the Heartland Trophy. By the way, guys, I got this. I got this for this very reason. As one of the last year, one of the Wisconsin content creators. I think he's a Indian guy. I actually do like. I think they put out good content. I think they're on the On3. Well, one of the guys is on the shoot. What is it called? Um, let's see here. One of the guys is on the Locked On Network, but the other two guys that are guests on the show, I think, have their own separate podcast, but they join together for their post game reaction. And he actually has the Heartland Trophy as like this big, massive thing that he has behind him as a decorative piece. And I just thought it was a good idea. Obviously, I didn't get one as big as the one that he has, but I like it all the same. So if Iowa loses, I probably have to take it down. Lester said last week that Gronowski had a chance to play against Wisconsin and that he was rehabbing. But he also said that Brown and Hecklinski were getting all the number 1 and 2 reps at quarterback while Gronowski was sidelined, giving each player a chance to compete. So that's that. So he's still listed on the depth chart. I think he's probably going to go. But again, injuries are weird things, and all it takes is one bad hit, one difficult move or plant, as he was struggling with deceleration in one of his legs, and and he's back to being injured. So obviously the bye week helped Iowa in that regard, but still. The other piece of news is that Xavier Williams is has returned to the depth chart, and true freshman Nathan McNeil is also listed as a backup with Jazian Patterson being injured. Terrell Washington Jr. It seems like Iowa's not even sure if they want him to be a running back. He's been a running back at times, getting a decent amount of carries. At times that's not been the case. I don't really know what's going on with him. Maybe he's injured. Um, we'll have to see. It sounds like Reese Vanderzee has a chance to play in this game, but Jaden Harrell is out. All right, guys, my analysis for this game. Um, I think this really is a tough one to predict because, as I said, both of these two teams do have good losses, if that's a real thing. And as I was saying before, I forgot to mention this. Jaden Montgomery, legacy recruit, looks like he is, and his dad, I think, coaches in the NFL or has in the past. Looks like he's going to get the shot at middle linebacker one spot. I feel bad for Jaden Harrell. I think he's kind of battled injuries a lot of his career, but has spent a lot of time on special teams. This is really, the one year for him to go out there and get it done. He's done decently well, and he's injured, so hopefully he's not out for that long. We'll see. Terrell Washington Jr. Not sure what's up with him. Maybe he's injured. We have the Tuesday press conference. Which obviously I'm not. I'm recording this before that, so we'll see what information we get on that. But my analysis for this game is that this game is going to be difficult to predict. These teams really don't have any bad losses on their roster. They've all their losses combined have come against ranked opponents. I do think Iowa probably has the slightly better resume coming into this game. They are more talented, and quite frankly, I think still there are things that are being ironed out in the Luke Fickell era for the Wisconsin Badgers. Does that mean that they can't win this game? Of course not. It's a rivalry game. I'm not super confident in Iowa. I believe in the talent that Iowa has. But it's just I haven't seen it all come together yet. The defense and there hasn't been a consistently elite unit for the Hawkeyes yet, as I expected going into this year. The defense has been great for most of the year, always serviceable, but at times struggling. But they certainly haven't been elite. They haven't been elite for the last couple of years when it comes to creating takeaways and turnovers. We've had some missed tackles, poor tackling going on. Poor tackling led to a touchdown in one of the final drives for Indiana, one-on-one. Is that just more an extension of the modern football era where they don't hit as much in the offseason? Who knows? But still, for a team like Iowa, you have to be a sure tackling ball club. But special teams has been kind of up and down. Reese Dakin has mostly been good, but he hasn't taken the step forward that I thought. I thought that he might literally be an All-American type punter. He still might be. We'll see. But as of now, I think that's remains to be seen. Still, with that said, though, for what it's worth, I do want to give credit where credit is due. Um, he is averaging almost a whole yard more. He's averaging 45.2 yards per punt. Last year he averaged 44.1. Um, he doesn't have as many touchbacks, but obviously Iowa hasn't played as many games. Five pinned in the 20. Last year he had 29, so he's probably going to get close to that percent inside the 20, 39, 38% compared to last year, 45% of his punts. His net punt average 43.5 compared to 40.2. So as far as the yardage goes, he has taken a step forward, but some of the finer points of punting, not quite. So, anyways, mostly what I'm talking about is Drew Stevens. Drew Stevens hasn't been consistent. He hasn't been poor, but he hasn't been, the fourth year kicker, the guy that, we saw his freshman year. He was, borderline all Big Ten kicker, one of the better kickers in the Big Ten. He still probably is. But in year four, my expectation was that this guy was going to become an All American kicker. And, he's missed a few makeable kicks, and it has hurt Iowa. I think for him, the talent is there. It's probably in between the years, as kicking and punting, so much of it is. Iowa has been excellent in kick return and punt return because of Caden Weejan, but that only goes so far. So, but overall, like I said, I expected either the defense, namely both of them, the defense and special teams, to overall be elite. And we just haven't seen that this year. The offense has improved, but it's been up and down. So I just don't have the confidence that I wish I had. But again, with that said, I think Iowa has the better overall team. They're more talented. If Gronowski is healthy to go and can do his thing, I think he can continue to take steps forward. Iowa's run game took a step back against Indiana, but Indiana has one of the best rush teams in the nation, or rush defenses in the nation. Realistically, it's going to come down to turnovers, defense, which defense is able to do the best. I feel more confident that Iowa's is going to be able to do a little bit better, and which offense is able to take advantages against the opposing team's defense. And unlike most years, I think it's actually pretty even this year, with the addition of Gronowski and being in year two with Luke Fickell. Not by much, but it's there. So I think Iowa does have the better defense. I think they have the better special teams, even though it hasn't been what I expected. The offense is improved. But with that said, this is a game on the road. Wisconsin is absolutely going to want this victory. They haven't beaten the Hawkeyes in what, 2 years? Actually, Iowa has won 3 years in a row. And, Iowa outside of Iowa State actually has done pretty well over the last 5 years against their rivals. So I'm going to take Iowa to win this game. I'm going to go 27 to 17. I think they get a double digit victory. I think it's close for much of the game, but Iowa is able to extend the lead. I hope I don't regret this, but hopefully and logically speaking, I think they should be able to take advantage of their bye week. Although Iowa has not done as well as I have predicted in the past post bye week. So take that for what it's worth. But I do still think that Iowa has the better team, and I think that they're going to win this game. I would not be surprised in the least if it's closer than the 10-point spread that I gave. But that's what, and I've been pretty dead on in all of my predictions, including the game against Indiana. I feel good about this one too. I'm picking the Hawkeyes to get a double-digit victory, although I think the game is close for much of the game. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment. You guys know the drill. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy, Willow. In facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you, Hawk fans. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.